I think this is something that most, especially CEOs or founders, deal with. And it's that whenever you have the vision for something and when you've created something, it is, in this weird way, it's also you.
Yep.
So
100%.
like the rejection to the mission feels like a rejection to you.
Yep.
Because in some ways it is.
Yep.
But there's also like a mental tension there of like, this person isn't rejecting me, but also they are rejecting so many things about this thing that is me. So I even find myself a lot of times like, I don't know if there's even like a clear way to think about that. So how do you navigate that? Because it's something we see every one of the leaders that we work with deal with.
Yeah, but going to the person who actually asked us this question, they're in, this person does film. So like, if all of a sudden people are gossiping about them in the film that they're doing or say something negative about whatever, man, that's their creation.
Right.
That's something they work hard for. That's a skill set. Now all of a sudden, that would feel some type of way. That's like somebody critique. Honestly, when you create something, it's like somebody critiquing or saying something gossip about your child. Like it feels that way. But here's my big thing. It's just part of it. The one thing that I think people today, and when I had to come to this realization, you asked me how I deal with it, it's expectations and reality. See, if your expectations are you're not going to be critiqued by people, tell me in the history of the world where people didn't have an opinion about people they don't know or about something. It's always happened. But we act like it's like freaking like new, like, oh my God, this has never happened. It's always happened. Listen, Jesus was perfect. And they criticized and gossiped and critiqued about him. What in the world you think they're going to do about me? So what I've had to do is realize it comes with it. And if you don't like it, don't lead, don't create things. I don't think you get that. You don't get the free pass. If you want to lead, lead. And you know what comes with that? Rejection. You know what comes with that? Gossip. You know what comes with that? People misunderstanding you. And you know what's crazy about that? Sometimes people will misunderstand you and you will never have the ability to actually correct or defend them. They will literally walk away with that perception, with that thing about you. And that's a part of leadership. And so I think so many times people do not come in with the right expectation. So if you don't like it, don't lead. Let's be realistic. It's never happened in human history. Anybody who's led, anybody who's created has been talked about. People have misaligned their character. They've done that. So what makes you feel like you're special that they're not going to do that to you? And I think that's when people get turned upside down because they don't expect it. So now I expect this. I expect people are going to have opinions about me because I am someone who's not a typical pastor. Right? I run multiple things. Okay, great. People are going to have thoughts about me because you know what? I talk about justice. So they're going to think, oh my God, he's some militant, he's a part of, Black Lives Matter. And in the church world, they'll even say, oh, he doesn't have good theology or whatever. People are going to gossip about me because they'll say, oh, how is he helping organizations become authentic and develop that? He doesn't have a degree or a master's or a PhD, in organizational, like whatever, leadership or whatever. And it's like the people are going to have their thoughts, but at the end of the day, if I expect it, doesn't mean it doesn't hurt, but I have to expect that's what's going to come with it. Mm-hmm. If not, I just need to get out and just don't do stuff where people are going to critique me. Just play the background. But that's
which
not,
isn't really realistic anyways.
No, I mean, listen, that's the thing. Even if you play the background, you think somebody's not going to critique you? Okay, let's say you're like, I've got a friend of mine right now whose son's really good in basketball. He's a great dude. Military, vet, 2 tours. So, just a great dude. Son's really good at basketball. Man, people critique him because of his son. And it's like, dude, he's just there. He's a present father raising his son. Matter of fact, he's a father raising his son by himself. And him doing that, and people critique him all the time. And it's like, a dude who's just a military vet, does all the right stuff, raising his kid, and people critique him. So every time I see him, I'm like, they critique him of his kid, not even what he does. I just think they're going to do it. And so you just got to kind of expect it and kind of, you got to deal with it and make sure. And that's the other thing, which we can maybe get into. You got to make sure when people talk about you, you can't let your heart turn black. You can't turn
Before you get into that, okay,
all right, we won't go there. Right.
So, because it was something you've already mentioned. So, in terms of expecting for there to not be criticism, I feel like at some times there are moments where maybe you experienced a leader, and like, let's just use a specific example. So maybe that person was super creative and innovative, which comes sometimes being a little bit more all over the place. And so your idea is like, I will never be that. Like, because I'm critiquing them, and in return, I'm saying I will never be that. I will always be the stable one who brings stability and comfortability and predictability, because I experience maybe the negative parts of this other form of leadership or personality. And then the same people who were saying before about that person that they weren't stable enough, and now there's somebody else leading and they're more stable, are now saying to you, you're not innovative enough. Like, no, the thing that you basically did because you were like, I won't get criticism if I perform this way, then the same people just start doing the same thing to you.
Because what that is what we talk about, that you're not being authentic when that starts to happen. You're inauthentic because what you were doing is like, okay, I'm going to be stable. All right, I'm going to be stable. Even though that may be your skills, I'm going to be stable. And I'm only going to be stable because this person I worked for, it was hell for me to work for them because they were innovative entrepreneur. They're all over the place, right? Well, here's what happens. When you just start then behaving, like, maybe it's your skill set, maybe it's not, but when you just start behaving for, again, the approval of people or to insulate yourself from gossip and slander, it's just no way around it. Because what I've come to realize, almost everything, when I do that, when I try to like do something because I know they're going to say this or whatever, and I am literally doing it, I honestly get critiqued or criticized for the exact thing that I'm trying not to do. And so that's why I tell people it doesn't work. That's why it's so important to have to be aware of who you are and lead out of that and realize it's not the cup of tea for everybody. That's the problem. The problem why things get sideways and it hurts us is because we feel like we're supposed to be the cup of tea for every person. They're not. Every leader has its gaps. One of my mentors said this. He said to me years ago, he's like, Adrian, every leader has gaps. You have to make a decision if you want to dance with it or not. Every leader does. I have them. You have them. Everyone has them. And so if you think you're perfect, you're not. And you're going to have leadership gaps that other people don't want to rock with. They don't want to follow that. Some people do not want to follow me because of, listen, I'm going to open up doors. We're going to move fast. We're going to push hard. We're going to do that. And that may not be for them. And what they will say is that, you're a workaholic, your culture, you live in a hustle culture. It's all the stuff. And that's their opinion. And you know what? I can listen. I make sure I evaluate. Are we doing this? Are we doing the right things? But at the end of the day, I just wasn't for them. And a lot of times that was funny about that pisses people off more. That makes them gossip more. Because when you don't react to them, it's why that, again, I know I've mentioned some stuff about like, God, the Bible, whatever, but like, it's like Proverbs. It's like, well, when somebody says like a negative thing to you, it's like, I'm paraphrasing, like, and it's like, you don't respond. It's like putting like a heap of burning coals. It's like, it kills people when you don't respond. There's been people like who are clients who leave. And I'm like, oh man, like, hey, whatever. What can we do to help you? Or, people come to, leading a church, people come and go. I had somebody the other day. I'm like, man, I said this and it took them by, they were surprised. I'm like, oh, we may not be the cup of tea for you, but if we aren't, man, how do we help you? I know a lot of great churches in the city. How do we help you get connected? And that throws people off because I'm like, you go wherever you want to go. And so I just tell people, when you start leading, here's the thing. When you start leading out of a real authentic place, here's the interesting part. People will start to talk about you even more when you're genuinely living out of that. Because a lot of times, secure people makes other people very insecure.
When do you know how to respond to something and when not to respond to something, I guess in terms of like correcting the narrative?
Yep.
And can you maybe speak to the difference when it's internal, like maybe even within a team that you're leading, and when it's something that might be more external about what you're doing?
Yeah, I think it's this. I think if it's internal, like let's say it's among your team, and you recognize some of the critique that's going on about you, and I'll give you a very practical example. I've mentioned very openly on this podcast about some of my, some of my mental health and emotional struggles. One of the things early on in my leadership, I was very, very up and down. Like, I mean, at times I'm still like, I wear my emotions on my sleeve, right? But I was really, really up and down. Like, and when I would get up or when I would get down, like it was like a huge, huge effect. And so at some point in time, like it was started to impact in a negative manner. I had to address that and saying I had to own that. Yeah, you guys are right. And this is what I'm working on. Now, am I ever going to be like this straight across stable person? No, that's not who I am. But I need to be better to where when those things happen, what are my practices to make sure I'm not projecting as, so much within the organization, whatever. And so I had to own that. I had to communicate that. I think the other thing about speaking publicly about stuff or whatever, I think one of the things is that people are so afraid today to be canceled. That's why everybody starts to talk. Well, I don't want people to think this. Why? Because you don't want them having that. Because why? What if they cancel me? And here's the thing. When you are so tied to stuff financially, you're so tied to image, whatever, then you're going to always try to protect that. Because I tell people, what makes Dave Chappelle, like I think he's a great example of this, what makes him so powerful is he literally wants you to cancel him. Because like that, his hope and goal is for you to cancel him so he can just go back to his farm in Ohio and invite people there and still tell jokes. But he just will say the wildest stuff. And then you can't cancel somebody who doesn't care because he doesn't do it for the money. He does it for the art form and whatever. So that's what's made him even more. He's made even more money the more stuff he says. This is what he thinks, feels. And again, I don't agree with everything Dave Chappelle says, but what I do appreciate about him, he is who he is, and he doesn't care what you think if this is what he believes, and he's not going to let public opinion sway him. I think so many times today we are so concerned with public opinion and people canceling and what they're going to think about me. Am I going to lose this and this? That we just don't have a lot of like real, authentic people leading because they're just doing it for just to keep their position, their likes, their power, whatever. And honestly, I just don't think that's healthy for a culture. I don't think that's healthy for people. And I think that's why we're in this incredible leadership crisis right now. It's because everyone is in image management. Everybody today is image management. You look at my social media, how am I curating this? And even people who are on social, and you always keep me hip to this stuff. Even people on social right now who are like, they're not trying to manage it. We don't want they don't want their Instagram or their TikTok, whatever, to look curated. We want it to look like, just not. Dude, that's literally a brand that you're doing. It's still image management. You just want to look like a dirt bag. Like, I'm sorry. You want to look like you want to look like a dirt ball. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, well, I'm not keeping myself. I'm not putting makeup on. I'm like, all right, great. That's your image now. You know what I'm saying? Because it's the hot, popular thing. If in order to be a leader, you have got to understand this is just part of it. And that, like, if you're so caught into your image management, at some point in time, you will stop being an effective leader.